Welcome to Your Future Starts Now, the go-to podcast for extraordinary women who are ready to step into their next chapter with authentic confidence. I'm your host, Gia Lacqua, empowerment coach, motivational speaker, children's book author, and girl mom. Whether you're a corporate powerhouse or an entrepreneur, this show is designed for you. Your Future Starts Now is more than just a podcast. It's a movement towards rewriting the rules of success for high-achieving women. Are you ready to get unstuck and step into your next chapter? If so, you're exactly where you need to be. Your future starts now. Welcome to Your Future Starts Now. I'm your host, Gia Lacqua. Thanks for tuning in. Today, I am so excited to welcome Marina Tolentino to the show. Marina is a realtor based in Hawaii. She's also a podcast host, mentor, and an amazing mother. She runs 3 businesses. She invests in real estate and homeschools. So she knows firsthand that working smarter and not harder is the key to breaking the cycle of chronic overwhelm. Marina is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to all things motherhood, entrepreneurship, business mentorship. Marina, welcome to the show. So happy to have you here today.
Yes, I'm so glad to be here. It's going to be fun. Excited to talk.
Absolutely. So I'm sure you have a lot of backstories, but tell us a little bit about your backstory and what led you to where you are today.
Yeah, well, the Cliff Notes version is I was a wedding planner for 10 years. So I did that right after I had my own wedding, and I was like, oh, this is a fun career. So did that all over California and then moved to Hawaii in 2016, which is my husband's home of record. So he had just left the Coast Guard. We were coming back home, brought the wedding planning business to Hawaii, but that started the next business and the next business. So ended up starting a furniture rental company that evolved into a staging company. We ended up starting a honey company because that was like family business. They were just giving away honey for free, and we're like, oh, we can make a business. And then fast forward, COVID hits, and we realized really quickly we are not going to have weddings and events for quite some time. I had brides in Australia, New Zealand demanding deposits back that we'd already used that money for other things. So it was like a crazy time. But just thought, hey, I might as well just get my real estate license. I'm already helping sellers list their homes for sale and decorate them. I have this skill set with sales. So did that very quickly with a 5-year-old and a newborn at the time. So I had my second one January 2020. And by June, I was licensed, up and running, and had a great first 2 years. Of course, it was like drinking from a fire hose during the real estate time at that time. It experienced burnout for the first time in my career ever in those first 2 years. And then just realized, like, what is this? Is this a bait and switch? Like, basically in real estate, you only eat what you kill, right? And so I just realized this is more like a job. This is not a business. And so very quickly by year 2, got my first assistant and changed my life forever. Once I realized I could delegate like half of my work plate, I was like, oh, this is where the margin is. This is how the successful people are doing it. This is how they have 7 streams of income. It's because they're not doing it all. So just changed my life completely. And then as of this last year in 2024, I'm now homeschooling both kids. So preschool and 4th grade. But I'm loving it. I'm loving the freedom and flexibility that we have. I love my work-life balance right now in this season, and I'll talk about seasons probably later in this conversation. But right now it feels good. And so I'm just embracing the feel good season that we're in.
That's incredible. What an amazing story. And so you're a serial entrepreneur and clearly have a lot of experience with pivoting and sort of reinvention. So there's so much there to tap into. Today, we are going to talk about, we thought it would be appropriate since we are approaching the end of the year. We thought it would be good to talk about New Year's resolutions and goal setting, and would love your perspective for our listeners on what that could look like for them. First, before we pivot to that though, I would love to know, based on your experience, because our audience is, essentially the high achieving woman, right? Who's doing it all, managing it all. And you mentioned outsourcing and delegating some of your work and how that was sort of life-changing for you. Are there any other tips, tools, pieces of advice you would offer for people who feel stuck in that cycle, right? Because looking at you, it's like, wow, she's figured it out, right? She's figured out the mythical quote unquote balance of, having it all, doing it all. So curious what advice you would have for others who are listening.
Sure. I think first thing that comes to mind is just accepting and recognizing the season that you're in, right? Because it's not always cruise mode. That's impossible. Life doesn't work that way. You're going to have ups and downs. And then if you're in the beginning of a business, it is really, really hard to feel balanced because you do have to put in 150% to move the needle, And a lot of times in the beginning too, money's tight. We don't have that extra funds to delegate and hire out and take things off of our plate. You do have to do it all. But I also think, in a sense, as a business owner, you should be a master of all skills so that you can train the next people. I feel like when you're a business owner and you can't, do the accounting and you don't know what's happening, there's a little bit of margin there that's like, are we sure? But just recognizing the season that you're in so that you can get to the next one, and have that with clarity and that vision and goal to get to. Because if we're just in survival mode constantly and reactivity, like it's so stressful and we never feel in
Mhm.
control, which then has us doing more and more and more because we're not feeling in control. And so it just is like this downward spiral. So
Yeah.
recognizing season, getting very clear on where you want to go, and then recognizing like basically you have to build a business to the point that you have too much business to then be able to do the next step. And I think a lot of us are at that 75% where it's going, but it's not quite overflow yet. And once you hit that peak, you're going to know it because you're not going to be able to respond to people in time. That's your sign to be like, okay, now I have the availability and funds to like delegate at least 25% off my plate to start, with the goal to delegate more in the future. But it takes time. I think patience and time. So often we think we're behind or that it's not going fast enough. Give yourself 2 years to just fail forward and give it your all before you even realize if it's a valid business or not, because sometimes they just don't work too.
Yeah, that's such great advice. And it is, we always feel like we have to be perfect 100% all the time, right? And that's
No,
not reality.
no, there's so many failures that are not on social media.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, so on to our topic for the day, New Year's resolutions and goal setting. Resolutions has such a connotation, and personally, I think I've stopped making resolutions because I got so sick of setting them and then not following through with them. And so,
Yeah,
so for some people it can be a little bit of a dirty word.
totally.
So tell us, what is your take on New Year's resolutions?
So I think I'm in the same boat as you. Something happens as we age where we realize after 15, 20 years of trying to do this resolution thing that it's a bunch of BS.
Right.
But I do think it's a great natural reminder with the calendar to kind of reset. And it doesn't mean we're going to go hard and do 75 hard and do all these crazy things, but it's just like, again, taking inventory of where you are. And then I think giving us grace and permission to just improve ourselves in one area or two. Again, we're not going to extremes, but like if I could change anything or what would make me feel a little bit healthier, a little bit better about my life, how would I just feel better about body acceptance? Doesn't mean weight loss. I think always we think like resolutions and weight loss. No, it could be like I'm not going to have screen time in the morning the first hour and before I go to bed for the last hour. That's a great way to reset for the new year and just clear up mental space. So just giving yourself grace and permission to improve your life if you're not happy. Or I know for a lot of us who are those type A overachievers, we want the checklist. You can make a checklist if you really want to, but don't let it consume you. Don't obsess about it because it's just not going to be realistic or stick. So I think I just saw there's something about like a 66-day habit thing that women are doing right now where it's more like a soft goal. Nothing is hard, nothing is firm. If you miss a day, you just pick up again, you don't start over. And I love that approach to just a reset for the year.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think for many of us, like you said, the high achieving women, the type A, we set these lofty goals that sound really great, but then we become very quickly overwhelmed and discouraged, right? Whether it's lose 20 pounds or buy a new house or get a new job or start my own business, right? And then it becomes insurmountable and life happens, right?
Yeah.
And then it sort of falls to the wayside. So I love what you said about maybe they're micro goals, maybe they're reset moments, maybe they're smaller opportunities to incorporate wellness habits into your life. The screen time, I'm glad you brought that up actually. So the 1 hour, I know they say before you go to bed, you're not supposed to be on your, screen. And then when you wake up, but that for a lot of us is a really hard habit to break. So
Yeah.
even though that seems like a really small goal, it could be really difficult for some of us.
Yeah.
What would you say, when we're trying to implement some of those habit changes that can be really difficult?
Well, some of us, we just need to go to bed earlier anyways and wake up earlier. So that's the first good habit. You don't need to be checking your phone at 6 if you're up at 5. Business doesn't start for me at that time. Business starts at 9. And so if I can just give myself, again, margin in the morning, I think what it is use an actual alarm clock, not your phone, because that's the temptation right there. Put
Mm,
your phone away. They actually sell block boxes for your phone, I think, on Amazon. So you could like set a timer for when you're able to open it because truly nothing is usually urgent in those hours. Like past 10 o'clock at night and before 6, like what is going on in your business that's going to be urgent, hair on fire? Not a lot. And then most other ways, they can call your spouse if they really need to, like set up a backup system. But for the most part, it's just recognizing that is such sacred time for your brain, you know? And so we always talk about habit stacking our mornings where we're having alone time. And obviously for
Yep.
young moms, that is a challenging season. I've worked through this constantly, and it's always like, oh, it's not working. Let's try it again. Communicating with your spouse. I'm going to have 5 minutes to myself. Is that okay? Like, I'll just be in the other room and like, can you handle breakfast or something? Or just making that time other in the day if he's not available in the mornings, vice versa. But I love the mornings to do my devotionals, to read a personal development book of some kind, at least 10 pages. And just recognizing, again, the day will continue when I pick up the phone, but I don't need to do it that first hour. So often we think it's urgent and we like have that almost like that addiction to check our social media, to be like, am I going to get a dopamine hit? Like all these things. And going to bed, I love the wind down routine where I'm like literally cleaning my room, making it like a hotel, folding it down before the shower, turning on the lamps, and reading, like really, really reading. I just got Tim Tebow's wife's book. I just started it and I'm so excited to dive deeper into it. But stuff like that, it's like, it's a fun book, but it's also going to improve my life. And I honestly get sleepier when I read instead of watching so many shows and doing the scroll. So it does become a little bit of like a selfish, like, ooh, this is for me. This is a self-care moment, and just make it special.
I love that. And it's true. I mean, the screens tend to be anxiety provoking and create more stress, right? I find even if I'm at the end of the day trying to read the news, it's like the most stressful thing I can do for
Good
myself.
news.
Yeah. So I love, looking at that as self-care and the habit stacking. And the other thing you mentioned that's really important is the communication around those boundaries. I found when when my kids were very small and I tried to take a few minutes to myself, I found that I wasn't really communicating my needs, and setting boundaries around that space. And so, it was interrupted. It wasn't my own time because I didn't communicate my needs. And so I think that can be really hard for us. That was more of a mental block for me, because it was hard for me to admit that I needed something or I needed time for myself. But I think the communication around that is so critical. And then, trying to hold firm.
Mm-hmm.
I love
Absolutely. Setting
boundaries.
the expectations and not keeping score with your spouse is going to save your marriage. 1,000%.
That's great advice. So when we talk about goal setting, what comes to mind for you? I know it sounds like you've implemented a lot of really great, healthy habits and self-care and wellness. What would you recommend for people who are thinking about, okay, I need a reset. I want to set goals for next year, but I want it to be attainable. What would you say?
Well, first, it comes with the reflection like we love to do at the end of the year. So, personally, but also financially, health wise, all of that. So, just kind of going through each one of those buckets. So, let's start with ourself and our soul. How is our spiritual life doing? Do we like our current habit stack? Like, are we involved in anything in our community? What does that look like? What would be the ideal version of that? And kind of ranking it. And then just journaling it all out. And again, this doesn't have to be a worksheet with someone else's template. This is just you and a pen and paper, and just like literally reflect on last year. This is how I felt about my spiritual life. I'm liking this. I'm not liking that. And then what do I want to do to make it better? Where do I feel like I can improve this year? And just pick one tiny little area. We're not going to become priests in a year, just one little thing. Next thing's going to be your body, right? And again, not necessarily weight loss unless that is a big burden on you right now. But I think just feeling good in our body is so important. So this last year, I noticed I wasn't feeling very good. And there were some issues that were popping up hormonally that I've never experienced before. So hitting age 36, something changed. And I was like, this isn't a good sign. So I decided to get help and ask the doctor for help. If that's you and you're recognizing, like, is this it? Is this how good it's supposed to be? Or are we just settling? Like, journal all that out. Of course, then we have marriage and we have kids and family and parenting, like journaling all those buckets out. And then I think on the family side too, relationships, friendships are so big. We are living in a loneliness epidemic, and it's been more apparent to me than ever, and just my friends and seeing it online. So like, do an inventory count. How many close girlfriends do I have that I could call at 1 a.m. if I needed them? Because we probably don't have as many as we used to. And so just recognizing, is there anyone in my circle that has potential that maybe I could invest more into this relationship? I just did a podcast on mine about how many hours it takes to build a friendship. So 50 hours with a person is just baseline friendship. It takes over 100 hours to consider them a close friend. So as busy moms, that seems impossible. You're like, okay, we'll be friends in 10 years. We just don't have time. And so just recognizing, like, is there ways that we can kind of combine our schedules, or our kids doing activities in the same area? maybe there's a mom that's like the cool mom at a group, but I haven't reached out to her yet. Maybe I could do that because we're already doing similar tasks and activities. I think friendship is a big one for quality of life this next year that I want to work on personally. So I'm excited about that. And then we can go into business, right? So just reflecting income, but also how much time you're spending on your business. Do you like the amount of time? Where is your business coming from? Just reflecting on that. Is it from one or two primary sources, or are you kind of spread thin and if it sticks to the walls, do that thing? Like, where is business coming from? And then I think doubling down on the things that are working. And that really helps after year 2, year 3, you start to see trends in your business. It's hard to do that in the first 2 years. But for me, that's social media and YouTube. So now I cut out all other advertising expenses and I just do those things. And to me, it's like kind of free. I don't pay anybody, right? I just pay the editors. So just reflecting on that. And then for me too, this year, I'm really looking at, well, how many deals do I actually have to do to be successful, or in my benchmark, have a good quality of life. It's not about being the top producer or the top 10 realtor in my state. It's more like, okay, this is the quality of life my family needs to feel good, to be able to travel, to save. Let's just hit that. And then the rest is just cream on top. Give yourself so much permission to just do less, which I think is a huge goal for next year too. And I think those are the major buckets. Did I miss one that you can think of?
No, I think that is amazing. There's so much there I want to dig
Yeah.
into, but that's super helpful. I think thinking about it in the categories of life and the, looking at your life holistically and the different facets and
Mhm.
like you said, sort of an inventory or an audit of what's working, what's not working, what needs to change. The piece you mentioned that stood out to me, one of the things that stood out to me is this concept of settling, where as women, we're so busy doing and going. Sometimes we don't realize that in some facet of our life, we are actually settling.
Oh, yeah.
And that can show up in many different ways, in a career, in a relationship. It could even happen with your health, right?
Mhm.
As a parent. And so I see that all the time in the women that I work with. And so as we're going through sort of this inventory and this goal setting, how would you think about, or how would you tell people to think about kind of evaluating where they might be settling for the status quo?
I think most of us probably know already, and we're just in denial.
Yeah.
So, just first of all, you're probably exhausted or overwhelmed in maybe one or two buckets of your life because you just don't have the capacity to address it in the manner that you want to. And so maybe you're just like defaulting to, well, my husband's got to handle it because I can't even think about it. Or for me, like I live with my in laws, which is a huge blessing. But there are times with parenting that I'm like, you know what? I don't have like the patience for this right now. So I'm just going to let her make dinner and I'm just going to go to the other room or something because she's already in the kitchen. That's not the parent that I want to show up to be. I want to be present at dinner too every night if I can. But there are definitely areas where if I would have planned ahead and if I would have made a different like action step to get to dinner time, I wouldn't be worried about dinner at 7:30. It would have been on the table at 6. So just priorities. It's also a reflection of
Yeah,
priorities. And again, seasons. What is the biggest priority in this season?
sure.
It's okay to let a couple of things slip, but realizing when the season's over, we're going to get back on the horse and tie this all up with a bow. I think health and wellness is one of the first areas we let slip because it does take a lot of attention and it does take some planning. If you're just like survival mode, you're just eating whatever's in front of you. And sometimes you don't even eat until 2 p.m. in the day. Like I'm guilty of this.
Yeah,
But if I would have planned ahead, like meal prepped, maybe meal prep is a great plan, or just having protein snacks in the fridge ready to go can make a world of a difference.
sure.
So definitely I think just what it is and maybe just pick one or two that you could actually tackle this year and kind of recognize.
Mhm.
So again,
Yeah.
communicate with your spouse because he's probably got some too.
Yeah, and the prioritization I think is
Yeah.
important too. That's a great point. One more question for you as it relates to goals and resolutions. So one thing I have always struggled with, and I struggle with this personally and professionally in my business, I am guilty of chasing the shiny object, right? Like I
Mhm.
am guilty of not being consistent. So I say I'm going to do something, I do it a couple times, and if I don't see immediate results or an immediate benefit, I am
Mhm.
on to the next thing, right? So
Yep.
how can we build in, right? Building a habit requires consistency. So I would love to hear from your perspective, how can we build consistency into our planning?
Yes, so good. And I have definitely learned through this one too, and I'm still guilty of it at times. So some of it comes from that lack of patience, right? Because we're
Yeah,
like, it's
yes,
not working. So why are we doing it? Let's just try the next thing.
totally.
this other course is going to solve all my problems, right? And then we don't even finish the course. It's just like
100%. I am so guilty of that. I feel so
because
called out right now.
because it's not working, it causes insecurity as well, that I'm not good enough, I'm not doing it the right way, surely something's wrong with me. And again, we just go down to this downward spiral and we're self-sabotaging at this point. And we're
Yeah.
also self-sabotaging our wallets and our bank accounts because we're spending more money than we're supposed to be. So trust me, from someone who has failed forward way too many times on this, that just look at what's working, like literally. And so much of what you're doing, you just haven't done enough of it yet. That's the problem. And so it's
Yeah.
the impatience issue. So for me, like with social media, you can't expect it to work within 1 month. It's just not going to do it. And so many will like, I'm going to post every single day for 30 days in a row and my life will be changed. No, honey, 6 months. Give it 6 months of every single day. You have to build trust. You have to build that repeatability with people. It's an online relationship when you post. And so when you realize like, okay, that's the benchmark instead of 30 days or instead of 2 weeks, then you have all this grace and permission to just do your best. That's all I can do. And realizing a lot of the things that we're trying to control are actually out of our control anyways. So all you can do is show up as the best version of you, give it your all for that day at that task or whatever, and then just let the rest go. Like that's all we can do. And so I feel like so much of business success isn't about the doing, but it's about the who. So it's relationships, and with my business, it's referrals. So I just need to be top of mind. That's all I have to do. So as long as I put all my effort into being top of mind, I can let the rest go. It's not about doing door hangers and flyers and all these things in open houses. It's just when someone thinks of real estate, they think of me. That's all I need to do. So same with your business and same with 99% of the other businesses, it's relationships more than anything. So yes, like courses and shiny objects can help us scratch the itch and maybe build a skill or two, but it's probably not going to change your life. So also dropping the bar on that a little bit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's such a great point. And I think, what do they say? It takes 21 days to build a habit. And yet at the same time, our attention span is diminishing, right? They're saying we have the attention span of a goldfish at this point. So,
Yes.
so maybe it's committing to us doing something for a certain period of time that you can truly evaluate whether or not it's been effective. Rather than fall into the impatience trap. So I love that. I think that's a great
I want
point.
to add one more thing. Get a mentor.
Mm,
Also, because your mentor has probably tried all the things, or they know
yeah,
people who tried all the things too. And so they can save you time and money as well. And be like, okay, if we're looking at buying a course, what's really going to give you the outcome you want? Not some
yeah,
shiny object syndrome of something else, but like, what is the tangible result? Maybe you don't even need to buy the course or do the thing because you might already have the answers within you or know someone who can teach you for free.
yeah.
I think mentorship is also so powerful because you get to tap into that person's network. So it's not just yours, but you get to share. So that's a huge tip.
Yeah, great advice. Mentorship, coach, someone who can help hold you accountable and help show you how, things can be effectively done. So I love that. Marina, anything else you want to add in terms of, any advice or anything you want our listeners to consider changing or doing differently after listening to today's episode?
I think just an extra pouring of grace and forgiveness and just acceptance of who you are today is the version you're supposed to be. You're not supposed to be tomorrow's version. You're supposed to be today's. So live in the present, accept the good things, let go of the bad, and just keep moving on. We're so hard on ourselves as women. And so I just wish more of us could be like, it's okay. The day's going to keep going. The earth's going to spin around another time. We woke up this morning with breath in our lungs. We're going to have a great day and just forget the rest.
Yeah, so true. Give ourselves grace.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. And we talk about success and redefining success on this show. So I would love to know from your perspective, how do you define success for yourself? And maybe how has that evolved for you over time?
Yeah, totally. So I would say definitely early 20s and even up until the last 2 years previous to this, it was all about financials. Like I totally had myself on a financial benchmark that to be
Yeah.
successful, I had to make 6+ figures X. And like definitely now with a post-COVID economy, like 150 plus is like minimum, bare minimum.
Yeah.
And it's just a crazy world. And so
Yeah.
I totally had to grow through that. And then I hit it and then I doubled it again. And I was like, wait, I'm supposed to be happy now. How come I'm not happy? And I just had this aha moment of like, whoa, it's true what they say. Money is not the answer. And I figured out how to be successful with less, meaning like accept that this is what I need versus what I want. I'm getting really clear on that. That takes a lot of soul searching and internal wrestling you have to grow through. No one can just tell you and teach you it in a day. You really kind of have to grow through it yourself.
Sure.
And then I think now it's like how I show up every day, how I feel and how I look, and just like the version of me, that is success more than what my achievements are. It's who
Mm,
I am today is successful, no matter what money I make, no matter whatever, the outcome it is. It's just, how do I feel? And do I feel like I'm giving it my all and like the positive, vibrant person that I am? That's successful.
beautiful. I love that. And Marina, where can our listeners learn more about you and the work that you do?
Yeah, so I've got a podcast that's new this year. It's called the Work Like a Mother podcast. It's been super fun. So definitely jump into there, listen to episodes, very similar topics. We're talking about mom life, women's health, all the things to make you a better person, and just, again, give yourself grace because we're all going through it. There's no easy motherhood. And then definitely on Instagram, it's at Marina T Tolentino _. That's going to be the best way to find me. But would love to connect with anyone if they are looking for mentorship or they just want inspiration and want to connect and share the journey together. I'm all about community.
That's perfect. I love that. And I also, you mentioned earlier that you're expanding your repertoire into cooking, I hear.
Yeah, so I was sharing just before this. I'm actually filming 4 YouTube videos today for a holiday cooking series on my channel. So if you go to YouTube, search Marina Tolentino, we're going to have 4 Hawaiian recipes for the season. But it'll be a fun experiment, way to switch up the channel. So
I
we'll see.
love it. I love
Next
it.
week.
I'm definitely going to be checking that out. Marina, thank you so much for being here today, for sharing your insights and your expertise.
Yes, thank you.
And of course, you can visit my website at gialacqua.com, reach out on Instagram at gialacqua. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. This is Gia signing off with gratitude for your time and energy. Our mic drops, but the movement continues. Until next time, your next chapter is waiting. Take care.
That concludes another empowering episode of Your Future Starts Now. Before we wrap up, I want to thank this incredible community of high-achieving women. Your energy, resilience, and commitment to growth are the driving force behind what we do. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate it, leave a review, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Your feedback fuels our mission to empower high-achieving women just like you. And of course, share Your Future Starts Now with the extraordinary women in your life who are also on a journey of healing and empowerment. Connect with us on social media, share your thoughts, let us know what topics you'd like to explore in future episodes. Stay connected on Instagram at gialacqua. I encourage you to carry the energy of this conversation into your day and keep on supporting the incredible women around you. Until next time, remember, your next chapter is waiting.